So today I have a Firefly, and really the most exciting thing you can do with a Firefly is make a stock out of it these days. And I kind of agree with that, but if you've ever seen the Firefly's plunger tube and the spring combination it's got with it, it's actually a little longer than a retaliator, and the spring weight is a little heavier than a retaliator. So I would like to keep the plunger in there active. Now, what am I going to put this on as a stock? Well, everyone puts them on stripes, and that's all fine and good. I've done, probably 5 or 6 stripe flies in my time here in Nerf. But the one thing I've never seen is a stockade. Well, this is a barricade. It's the older version of a stockade. My idea was it was the same colors, and it interests the dogs. But let's just kind of visualize this here for a second. That probably won't look half bad. And I'm going to keep the spring intact on the top, so there'll be another barrel protruding out there, but, you know, I've got good faith that this would look like a really cool sci-fi or a post-apoc LARP-ish blaster. I'm thinking I'm going to go with the sci-fi side of it and paint it up nice and silver, and let's see how it turns out. Okay, step 1 is to butterfly the blaster, like so. And now we're going to take out everything but the plunger tube, the catch, and the slide. And now to do some cutting, like that and that. Boom! Alright, I know this one's a mess, but I just wanted to show you what was going inside. This is the Barricade after I opened it up and tested it with that dart. These are Barricade motors. Barricade motors are really good, but I'm not going to be using Barricade motors. I'm going to be using MTB honeybadger motors. They're 2-cell motors meant to run at 6 volts. I'm going to be running them at, well, hopefully stock voltage, depending on whatever the customer uses. This could run 2 IMRs and a dummy cell very well in the stock battery tray, but those are what the motors are, and these are the new, slips my mind for a second here, blasterparts.de flywheels, and they are just ever so slightly concaved. The Barricade, of course, was made to shoot normal sized tagger slash suction cup slash whistler darts, so this is a very wide kind of dart guide. I'm going to have to build that up a bit so the dart feeds straight through these, but the dart fit, even though it is a Barricade cage, the dart fit is still very tight, even though I missed the center of the flywheel. It still takes some effort to push it in there, and you can see they are squishing the dart in just a bit. Should be good. Oops, and one other thing. I'm going to be rewiring it with my tangle of 18 gauge wire here and putting a switch in. I think I'm going to go without a rev switch. Instead of having a rev trigger, I'm going to mount the switch somewhere around here so that when you pull the trigger back partially it revs, because there is no action happening for about that length of pull, and that should be okay. Yeah, I'm thinking probably up here in the front. So this is the switch I'm using. It's your standard kind of, you know, lever action micro switch. So it's got 3 prongs here, and that's because one of them is on now and the other one is on now. So one wire will connect here to the far right terminal, and that's called the common. That prong, I guess, connects to both of the middle and left prongs. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the far left prong is what's called normally open. So when the switch is open like this, current can flow from the right prong to the left prong. When it's closed, current no longer flows from right to left, it flows from right to center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this switch right here, and you hear it click closed. It's going to be normally closed, and then when you pull the trigger, it switches to normally open. So I'm going to connect a wire from the common to the normally open prong, and when I pull the trigger that far, the motors will start to rev. And that is not even engaging the rotation mechanism, let alone the pusher mechanism. So that's where I'm going to put my switch. So the flywheel cage slash muzzle slash motor mount is really flush with the motors, and my soldering is less than perfect, but obviously it's thicker wire, so I had to cut out those little doors so that the wires could stick through, but it all runs really good. And now to put it back in the blaster and wire up the switch. You pull the trigger partially and it rotates, and you pull the trigger all the way and it fires. Okay, so this is a piece of 1/2-inch PVC. You can see there's a notch cut out there. The flywheels rest, kind of in that area, and these two wings kind of go into the gap between the wheels. It'll slide in like so, and just kind of help deflect the dart in. You can see you can't really see it too well, but I've shaved down quite a bit in here, so it helps funnel a dart in. So this is just going to fit in like so. There we go. Here's to straight shooting darts. And overall, I really like how it looks so far. Next up is putty, then sanding, then painting. So this is the back Firefly stock portion of it. I wanted to show you this before I went off and puttied everything and started painting. That's another trigger. So the idea, and I've done this with 2 other Fireflies before, is that I kept the original plunger tube and priming mechanism intact, and that's the cut down version of the trigger. Cut it in half, shortened it, and then moved the trigger over and cut out a new shape for it. So basically that hits the catch and that fires, and this obviously pulls back. I'm going to put either a 1/2-inch CPVC or 9/16" brass barrel on that, and it will shoot very far. It has on all of my other Fireflies that I've done like this. There it is. You'll notice a severe up angle just because of the difference between the I'm going to call this the hood height and the plunger exit area height, I guess. But that means it automatically arcs its shots, so that's not a bad thing. But basically, you just cock it back and pop it, and off it shoots. And this is a very strong shot. I'll fire one off and let you see what it looks like. So here we have a normal FVJ, moderately used. Just take it in there like a front-loaded dart. Shove it in there as far as it'll go. Of course, the dart is only about that long, so you got this bit of dead space. So if you ever have a ramrod of any kind and you push it further in there, you'll get better power. But load it just like you would the original Firefly and fire it. Hi everybody, this is my Barricade kind of Firefly mashup. I always thought that a Firefly was cool, but it just looked a little weird, and the Barricade looked really cool, but nobody really wanted to use it. And it is a useful blaster. It has 10 shots, it could be holstered, but I wanted to make something unique, so here's what I came up with. Obviously it's a Firefly meshed in with the Barricade. The Barricade is not a Barricade really anymore though. It's more of a souped up stockade. I've got 2 honeybadger 130 motors running on 2 IMR Trustfires E-Fest batteries in the stock Barricade battery tray. In the front here, I also have 2 of the blaster parts .DE flywheels, so they're slightly grooved so they get better accuracy. And on the barrel, it's actually a 1/2-inch PVC pipe with kind of little winglets cut in to snug up against the wheels and kind of act as a dart guide. Jam door still does work. Everything's been painted, of course. I've got internal LED lights. I know it's probably hard to see, but there's 4 in the hood and 2 in these kind of little line dot cool looking areas, and it just shines through really nice. Those are powered by a 9-volt in the Firefly battery tray and the switch that the Firefly originally used. The other thing that I think is really cool about this, that I don't see a whole lot of people doing with their Firefly integrations, is there's a second shot. So this actually primes the Firefly's plunger, and it's been singled with a brass barrel right here to fire out 1 dart. So it's kind of a backup shot, but it is a rather potent backup shot, reaching about 90 feet on a good angle, and it fires itself at an angle already. So it's a pretty good, sneak up from behind, quiet, sniperish shot, I guess. And that's fired by this trigger here, which is actually the cut-down trigger mechanism from the original Firefly. Just moved back, and I obviously cut it down, and it's a different shape. But it is still comfortable, and you can hold it like this and fire one off if you really need to. These ammo holders have 9/16 inch brass for them, so they fit elite darts, and the elite darts don't fall through. This single plunger is capable of firing any kind of dart though, so Whistler, Tagger, Suction Cup, Elite, Koosh. I've got Koosh loaded in right now. Yeah, that's about it. There are no locks in the Barricade anymore. This switch, while it is still physically a switch, does absolutely nothing. The paint is Krylon white base primer with a Krylon gray masked off, and on the back here is Krylon orange, and then the entire blaster has been dusted in the same Krylon glossy gray and glossy black, and then a Krylon acrylic crystal clear coat, which is glossy. And then before the gloss coat, I actually went over and hand painted all these details with acrylic, so there's weathering on all of these little edges, all the little, kind of stylistic things. All these pipes have scorch marks on it, so there's black and silver weathering marks all over the blaster. And yeah, now I'm going to show you how it fires. But first, I forgot to mention how it fires. I've set a single toggle lever switch in front of the trigger, so when you pull the trigger it starts to rev. So this switch on the side here no longer revs the blaster, it's just when you start to pull the trigger, it revs. And that works just fine. After every trigger pull, if you're fast to pull the trigger again, you don't really lose any speed between shots. And I found it to be a good way without having to craft a separate middle rev trigger. Alright, up in front here we've got blue Koosh darts, and in the back we've got yellow Koosh darts. I'll be firing the yellow darts through the single brass plunger, and these blue ones through the flywheels, so when we go out to check ranges we know which is which. Here we go. Alright, that was 10. And now for the one backup shot. Alright, 10 more shots loaded in. I've got 1 in the plunger, and we're going to fire off a few more from the plunger, probably 3 more after this. Everything. I didn't think I'd gone through them that fast, but I guess I did. And now for the Firefly shots, which you can pull with your thumb backwards like this, or with your trigger finger. I'm just going to do the trigger finger. After I looked at that footage, I realized you were looking right into the sun and everything looked completely black. So I'm going to fire, went back inside, loaded up 10 more into the drum and 1 more into the plunger tube up top. I'm going to keep the ones that are downrange for the sake of science, and we'll be able to get a better idea of what kind of ranges we get. So here we go. I'm going to try to just fire all of these as fast as it'll go. There we go. And the plunger tube. And now for my final trick, as I try to get trash cans into the shot but keep the sun out of it so you can actually see the blaster. I'm going to be firing these last 4 yellow couches out of the plunger tube and the last 10 that I had set up out of the Barricade. So here we go. Now I'm going to do like 2-shot bursts on the Barricade here. That's it. And now for the plunger tube. These do have to be twisted in. It's a very tight brass fit. Really like that pop. Last one, I'm going to try to aim the blaster down so that the plunger tube, the barrel is relatively level. We'll see how that looks. That one still went pretty far. Let's go check the ranges. Alright, same deal as before. My strides are 2 feet. There's a shed over here that's 74 feet. We're just going to start counting them off. And I'm not even going to try to lie to you. That's a nearly 100-foot shot from an angled honeybadger powered Barricade all the way up there next to the house, right